Thank you, Senator. Senator McDougall, you have 8 minutes.
Last year, I want to welcome the Minister here today, and I think this is a timely debate. I want to congratulate him too on his script, because with the exception of the development at the National Sports Campus, there isn't a single time commitment or date commitment mentioned anywhere in his script. And this worries me as a general proposition, because it's easy to talk about things that it is intended to do between now and 2040, but when are these things going to be done, how are they going to be done, what they're going to cost, and whether we're getting good value for money. These are the issues with which I'm primarily concerned. I heard what Senator O'Sullivan was talking about, national rail infrastructure and transport infrastructure, and I agree with that. I hope the Minister will forgive me if I look at the issues which arise for discussion today slightly from a Dublin perspective. Firstly, I want to say that I note that the Minister's speech mentions the Metrolink project. And I was struck by former Senator Sean Barrett's speech to the Dublin Economic Workshop the other day, in which he at length developed the proposition that there has been no cost-benefit analysis for the Metrolink project. It hasn't, the vaguest statements have been made about it, but there has not yet been published a cost-benefit analysis of that project. And it should be done. But more fundamental than that, the alternatives to it should have been considered in some form of public dialogue, and that never happened. And I note that the Minister, for instance, in his contribution today, speaks about the Lewis Green Line, which goes right past my garden. So it's a thing which I've always supported and I'm strongly in favour of. And the Minister says that it's intended to increase the capacity on that line by 27% by lengthening platforms and lengthening train sets or tram sets. And that's a good idea, and I favour that. But if they're going to lengthen the platforms on the Lewis Green Line, let's remember this, that the Metrolink project, as it was explained to representatives of the Oireachtas, including myself and Senator Humphreys and other people, involves a different form of platform, a different metro system, perhaps driverless trains, and entirely different stations. So are we spending money now on the Lewis Green Line, extending its capacity at this stage in pursuit of one strategy, which is to increase its overall capacity, while at the same time preparing for a Metrolink which will go the whole way to Sandyford and which will involve the radical transformation of all of the stations on the intervening line, the raising of their height so as to accommodate the kind of metro trains that is envisaged will run on them, and the destruction of all of the existing platforms, including the extended platforms to which the Minister is referring. Which are we doing? What is our plan? And it is the case, and I remember it from my time in government, that the Lewis Green Line, as it's now called, was planned with a view to its incorporation into a metro system at the time. That was a possibility. But that was not done at the time, and it was left aside. And bodies such as Éireann came up with alternative schemes for different metro configurations in Dublin, including an east-west link between Houston Station and Pearse Station and Connolly and the like. But one thing we should remember is this, and that is that we committed €368 million to the construction of the Cross-City Lewis. And if the Metrolink project, as currently envisaged and as currently out on for consideration for public consultation, is proceeded with, the Lewis Green Line is going to cease to exist in effect. It's going to connect Charlemont Station with the Broome Bridge on one tram service, and an entirely separate tram service from Sandyford to Bride's Glen on the other side. And I want some answers to these questions. Why are we extending the platforms for trams when we know that we'll be digging all those platforms up and putting a high vehicle platform system in place if we're going to construct the Metrolink the whole way to Sandyford? Now, I note that the Minister's speech doesn't mention connecting the Metrolink the whole way to Sandyford. He talks about the city centre and Dublin Airport. And I can see that there would have been a logic, if you're going to build a metro system from Swords to the city centre, to leave it at that and to have interconnectivity with the expanded Green Line Lewis service with longer trams and stop the idea of trying to break up the Lewis Green Line service into 3 separate components, one of which is the Broombridge Charlemont section, the other of which is the portion of the metro which runs from Charlemont to Sandyford, which would be a high-speed train operation, and then reverting to a tram system between Sandyford and Bride's Glen. I don't think this is joined-up thinking, and I don't believe that the Cross-City Lewis would have been built had it been intended to also serve places such as O'Connell Street and the like with the Metrolink project. I mean, we're going to have 2 stations on Stephen's Green, we're going to have 2 stations on O'Connell Street. And I don't think that all of this money would have been spent in that way had we had a clear view at that time when we authorised the construction of the Cross-City Lewis that Metrolink or something like it was in the pipeline, so to speak. But I go back to the fundamental point, and that is the absolute necessity for the publication of clear, unequivocal and convincing cost-benefit analysis for such an investment. And I would again ask why it is to be the case, if you are going to expand the capacity of the Green Line to the Lewis Green Line by the lengthened platforms and the much longer tram sets, which I fully support. I'm wondering why in that context we are also pursuing a different strategy, which is to, as I say, install a high vehicle train system on a portion of that line, which will involve the destruction of all of the newly expanded platforms and the like, and their replacement with a very different system, which the engineers in the National Transport Authority have in mind. And I would like to see, if I could, at some stage, that the Minister would, before we go further with all of these projects, that he would publish the detailed cost-benefit analysis for the Metrolink project. I want to say one last thing in relation to that. I also believe it's very important that the Irish public, and particularly the Dublin public, are given a fair and reasonable estimate about the amount of time for which the entire Lewis Green Line would be out of commission if this goes ahead. I was given, and so was Senator Humphreys, the suggestion that it would all be done in 6 months. Well, that's a laughable suggestion. And then it was admitted that whatever period of time it took to construct it, there'd be an additional 3 months for commissioning it. And I believe that the truth is that it's well between 12 and 24 months is a much more likely time frame for the temporary abolition of the Lewis Green Line service. The last thing I want to say, Alaska Hirlik, is this. In today's Times Irish edition, London Times Irish edition, there is a plea from cyclists for the investment of very significant sums in making Dublin a cycle-free, cycle-friendly city. And I do believe that that is an area which your department, Minister, and Dublin City Council should now concentrate on. Dublin is not a hilly area. Dublin is an area which could benefit hugely from bicycles. But most parents and most people of my age would fear going out on bicycles in the city centre traffic. There isn't enough dedicated thoroughfares for the use of cycles. And I think that from that point of view, there needs to be a really significant rethink of the commitment of Dublin City Council, which is the most relevant local authority, and your department, to making a major contribution to building new cycleways, building new bridges across the canal, opening up old laneways, having dedicated ways of getting around Dublin on bike, which is not threatened by heavy vehicles and traffic dangers.
Thank you.
So I welcome the Minister's paper here today. I say it's short on specifics, and I would like to have a clear commitment from him in relation to a clear picture given of the Lewis Green Line, cost-benefit analysis, and the project, because he has not mentioned it in great detail.
Thank you, Senator.